Jeb Bush was talking to the New Hampshire union leader, editorial board, and they were asking him about economic growth. He had an interesting answer. Listen to what he says in the middle.
Governor, you mentioned taxes, lowering them. You have anything flat tax or anything specific?
We're working on a strategy that's under, I'd say, my aspiration for the country, and I believe we can achieve it, is 4% growth as far as the eye can see, which means we have to be a lot more productive. Workforce participation has to rise from its all-time modern lows. Means that people need to work longer hours and through their productivity gain more income for their families. That's the only way we're going to get out of this rut that we're in.
People need to work longer hours. Oh, I didn't know it was that simple. Yeah, back to the mines. Okay. So now, of course, as soon as the Democrats pounced on that, Jeb Bush went into overdrive. Saying, I didn't mean that, man. I meant something else. All right, Jeb, tell us what you meant.
Well, I think people want to work harder to be able to have more money in their own pockets, not to be dependent upon government. I mean, you can take it out of context all you want, but high sustained growth means that people work 40 hours rather than 30 hours.
I meant the part-time guys need to work full-time, and that's what I meant by working long. But, you know, we showed you the entire context of the quote. We didn't just take it out of context, right? You just saw it for yourself. He didn't talk about part-time workers. He was talking about raising productivity overall, getting to 4% economic growth, and the way we were going to do that is work longer hours. It appeared to be that he was saying in general. Even if he was saying it about part-time workers, he's incorrect on so many different levels. So let me show you the actual facts. Half of full-time American workers reported working more than 40 hours a week on average in 2014. So it's not like we're not working enough. Half of us are working more than 40 hours. In fact, employees in the United States work longer hours and take fewer vacations than workers in any other industrialized country. So let's pause there for a second. Even if you give Jeb Bush every benefit of the doubt and he meant, hey, we got too many part-time workers and they need to work longer hours, he'd still be incorrect. No, we work longer on average than all other industrialized countries. So it's not like we have less part-time, we have more part-time workers, we're taking it easy, and France is so much more full-time workers, and that's why their economy is doing great, or Germany, or anywhere else, or anywhere you compare us to, Japan. It's no. We're working the hardest. We're working the hardest, not the least. Our part-time workers, our full-time workers. For a candidate to come out and say, well, you know, we'd have better economic growth if you guys just got up off of your lazy ass and worked a little longer. It's a little frustrating when we're literally the hardest workers in the country. But wait till you get to the last graph, because to me that is by far the most important. Okay, but let me give you more facts here, because this is very important. If he's going to go run off with the mouth about nonsense, we got to correct him. So according to the 2014 Gallup poll, Americans employed full-time worked an average of 47 hours a week, and almost half of them worked over 50 hours a week. I mean, if you're working on 50 hours a week, you are not slouching, man. You're working really, really hard. And this Jeb Bush, who's, by the way, been handed everything on a silver platter because of his last name, and who has all of his money, all of his connections, all of it because of his family handed to him. I'm not saying he didn't work hard after that, but he started, it's the old line from Ann Richards when she was running against his brother in Texas. George Bush started on third base and thought he hit a triple. So here comes Jeb Bush doing the same thing. I mean, he's a foot away from home, and he's like, hey, why don't you guys all run harder? I'm all the way over here. That's because that's where you started. He bragged today that his campaign has already raised $114 million. He did that by working hard? No, he went to rich people and said, give me your money and I'll make sure you get all the advantages, okay? So spare me about how we need to work harder. So now here comes the last graph that's the most important. This is going to show you productivity in this country from all the way back to 1950 to 2010. Wait a minute, look at that. Productivity actually is fantastic. The American worker has been doing an excellent job from 1950 all the way to 2010. That graph continues to skyrocket up. So it's not like we're not working hard enough. We're working plenty hard. And in fact, we were rewarded for that productivity all the way till about 1978. Up until that time, our wages are rising. Our hourly compensation is moving right next to productivity. We are getting rewarded for our hard work. But around 1978 to 1980, oh, by the way, who was the vice president in 1980 when the Republicans won? Oh, right, George H.W. Bush. Okay, so at that point, all of a sudden the graph changes entirely and our hourly wages flatline. We worked just as hard. In fact, harder. That productivity continued to rise and hourly wages flatlined. That was not an accident. And it wasn't because we weren't working hard enough. It's because Republican policy positions, because of the onslaught of money in politics, changed so that the people up at the top, the CEOs, got to take all that money home. So they kept your minimum wage where it was. They kept your wages overall where it was. They didn't share the rewards of everybody's hard work. Instead, it went to the very top. It went to the top 1%. I'm going to show you that graph one more time because I need you to understand this. That difference between where productivity is and where your hourly compensation is, in the middle right there, that is an unbelievable amount of wealth. That is trillions of dollars that should have gone into the average worker's pocket, just like it was between 1950 and 1980. But it didn't go into your pocket. It went into the pocket of the top 1%. All that money gone. Redistribution of wealth, not because you didn't work hard enough. It's because they changed the rules, because they wanted to make that difference and put it in their pocket. They didn't want you to have that money. They wanted themselves to have that money. So they lowered taxes on the rich. In 1980 when Reagan got into office, for the highest marginal tax bracket, not for their whole wages, but if they got to a certain really high point, it was 70%. They lowered it all the way to 28%. They did an unbelievable redistribution of wealth. Back when we had justice in this country, when productivity went up for the American worker, you got to share in the rewards. You weren't the only ones getting it. Of course, the CEOs were also getting it. The entrepreneurs were also getting it. But everybody went up equally because everybody was working equally hard. But after 1980, they took all the extra money from your hard work and put it into their pockets through deregulation, through lower tax cuts, through money being awash, politics being awash in money. So, for example, they do $40 billion in oil subsidies. Why do the most profitable companies in the world, in the history of the world, need extra subsidies from the American taxpayer? They take money out of your pocket and put it in the pockets of the CEOs of the oil companies and not the workers of the oil companies because their wages are the same. They do all of that because they get bribed by those same guys. We let the donors run our system entirely. This is money in politics on steroids, and it's cost us trillions of dollars. So that's why we started Wolfpack, to make sure we get money out of politics. Otherwise, the greatest robbery in American history is going to continue ad nauseum. They're going to continue to rob you year in and year out. And so now Jeb Bush comes in here on top of that and adds insult to injury by saying, oh, you should have worked harder. I'm going to fix the economy by having you work longer hours.